Hey guys, what's up? I'm Mike Lowe. We are in EA Sports College Football 25, and I'm going to be going over my tips for you before starting your Dynasty and how to get the most realistic Dynasty setup. Let's get to it. But first, thanks so much for subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. It's super appreciated. I'm so excited to go through more of college football this year with you all, including my James Madison Dynasty that you're seeing here. It's been really fun. We've kind of rolling along here, and I'll be talking more about recruiting in this video too, but certainly in other videos we'll be going a little bit deeper with some of these different areas and kind of the pros and cons I've been seeing of the game and so on. But let's get back to this video. But before we do anything relating to the Dynasty itself, you want to make sure you have the most updated rosters. Now, hopefully the server is going to cooperate here, and it does, and it's telling us we already have the latest roster, so that's going to be important. Let's jump into the Dynasty. Now, the servers in the early going have been a little bit slow, especially if you're looking to create a Dynasty on the cloud setting, and that's the recommended way to do so, even if you're just playing in like your solo Dynasty. So again, it's very similar to like the Madden connected franchise mode. Hopefully this loads up for us. Lucky for us, that worked the first try. If you run into an issue where the server is timing out, you just need to back out and try again, and you need to back beyond just the roster selection part. If you just do the roster selection, it will work, but for some reason it's going to throw you into a solo, or I guess offline franchise or a Dynasty. So make sure you back all the way out to where you can reselect cloud, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so let's just go through the Dynasty settings. I'll show you how I set up my Dynasty, or at least how I'm setting it up right now. So if you want coach firing, I mean, that's really up to you. Like in my online league, for instance, we have that off, or maybe CPU only, I think we have it. But for, I think, your solo Dynasty, I'd recommend having that on. A lot of this stuff's going to just be defaulted, which makes a lot of sense. I, even in my solo leagues, like to use play call cooldown and play call limits. It just kind of keeps you honest. Guys, I can promise you, if you want the most realistic number of plays in a game, you need to use 12-minute quarters. It doesn't really matter what you use on the minimum play clock. That's going to just lengthen the amount of time, like actual chronological time it takes you to complete a game. The lower this is, the quicker your games will be. And of course, the higher this is, you'll have longer games, but more time at the line of scrimmage. I just find 15 to be pretty good. You can do a couple quick looks, maybe a couple hot routes or something like that, but then it's time to snap the ball. Everything else, just kind of leaving off, but of course, that's really up to you. And none of this stuff really matters. I like to turn ball hawk, heat seeker off, and then switch. I have it on. It's really up to you how you use it. So those are my settings. And then as we back out from there, of course, you still have some other options like importing your team builder team. I'm not using that a lot, much at all. I've never really used that much in the past, so I'm sure there's some other videos out there that can go over that. And then of course, custom conferences, just like we had in NCAA 14, you can do a lot with that, including changing the rules and of course the teams that are part of each conference and so on. For this one though, we're just going with kind of the default 2024 setup. So we're gonna click advance. You can obviously just go ahead and pick your team however you want. I have a really helpful video on how I picked my team and how I did so realistically. And it's on my YouTube channel. It's got it's one of the most popular videos in the last few months here, so it should pop up pretty early for you. But if you want to see my process for selecting a team, you can do that. For this one, we're just going to go with Texas. That's not really a realistic choice, but again, if you want a little bit more of a realistic option there, you can check out that other video. So I'm going just head coach here because we're going to be doing some other stuff. And then, of course, it's up to you if you want to use kind of the fictional default coaches, you can. But I think in creating a coach, you really want to understand the differences between tactician, recruiter, and motivator. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you a ton. At the very least, you could start a dummy league. So this is a tip here. You could start a dummy league just to kind of see the different badges and whatnot that you can unlock with each of these. For me, it really depends on the program that you're starting off at. With me being at Texas, of course, I'm worried about recruiting, but we're already going to be a very, very strong recruiting school. We're the most popular school, arguably, in the state of Texas. Texas is a huge recruiting bed. So for me, I'm going to go with tactician because when I want on the field, what I want is I want us to be performing as well as we can. And so we're going to have the tools in place, I think, even if I don't have the recruiting set up. And so, of course, you're going to go in here and we'll create our name. And then again, it's really up to you how realistic you want to be. I just kind of stick with these playbooks for the particular team. You can of course set your alma mater, which for me, for my undergrad, is the wonderful football powerhouse of Eastern Michigan. And then because I live in Southern California, that just seems to be the most reasonable pipeline for maybe my coach lineage. Adaptive AI, there's not a lot of information on the internet about what this feature is. So let me tell you. Adaptive AI in College Football 25 controls how the CPU coaches will behave in real time during matches. And this is from esports.gg, which is like a college football guide website. It says this impacts how your CPU opponents will change tactics, switch plays, and make adjustments. They will do this based on how you are playing and how the game is going. So it's very similar to what you see in, say, like NHL, if you've played those games. And of course, you can do kind of whatever one you want here, but I think with this relating to gameplay, we'll just keep it at balance. No huddle. Again, it's up to you. I don't really mess with these because I don't think it matters. Maybe it impacts, like, I don't know, recruiting or something, but I think this mostly is just going to impact simulated games. Appearance, we'll do that really quick. By the way, here's a mini tip that's actually vital. When you do find a coach head that you like, take a screenshot of it. So if you create another Dynasty later, you remember what number you ended up using. I'm going with 280. And then, of course, the physique, you can set to whatever you want. I think it's a little disappointing at kind of like the limited apparel that we have to choose from. But of course, you can select that too. But that's really it as far as picking your coach. We're ready to move on. This here, throwback screen to NCAA 14. I loved it. You can see the history going all the way back the last 20 years. I think the most important thing here is you can't really negotiate anything, but I think you're looking at your job security, which should almost always be safe. And then really the key is on the right-hand side, the goal. This goal for the goal for this contract is to win 10 games, and you can assume that's going to be the goal for all 3 seasons. So, make a bowl game, win it. You got to win 10 out of your 13 games or so. If you make the tournament, maybe you get a little bit more. So that's really not too bad, especially being the number 3 team in the country. Well, we've loaded in to the Dynasty. Now, I know the first thing you're going to want to probably do is jump into your recruiting board, but I'm going to actually tell you to work backwards. Make sure you go in and adjust league settings, your gameplay sliders, anything like that. Here's what I recommend as of now. Again, things are always kind of changing. This screen should be what we set up already, so I'm just giving that a quick look. Everything looks good. So similar to Madden, that loads in, everything stays the same. I haven't landed on any XP sliders yet, so right now I just have those at default. I would say keep an eye on Operation Sports because there's always people who do like long-term testing with that. And so all I've really done so far at the time of this video creation is I've lowered interceptions actually for both teams because I've found it even on Heisman pretty easy to intercept the AI. And I'm playing safety, so maybe that's part of it. The other thing, I like to put injuries at 50. If anything, I may be going even a little bit higher than that, but right now I'm just still testing that. Penalties, you can max a lot of these out, but not all of them. I think holding, I would probably put around like 70 or so. Face mask, I would probably put around like 90. Should be pretty good. These can be maxed out. Legal block in the back, I would put at like 70 or even like 80, something like that. And then roughing the passer, I'd actually leave at 50. Maybe you go to 51, but it's calling it a lot. Roughing the kicker, I wish there was a slider for this because there's probably, or even like the running into the kicker. There's a few of these, so you could even kind of experiment with this a little bit. Go with like maybe turn that one off, but leave running the kicker in, running into the kicker turned on. So anyway, it's up to you. There's not too much in user settings, but there is one important thing here, and it looks like we have kind of the Madden legacy issue where, say if you pick against win, which is what I like to do, like I like to have mine set like this, but the problem is, just like in Madden, you will always receive unless you put kick. And so it's kind of goofy, but like if you want to have some kind of variety where you are kicking off at the first half in this game, as of now, unless this gets patched, you're going to have to put kick as your first choice, which is just kind of weird because it has you losing the coin toss probably more often than you should. The only other thing down here is I do use auto flip play on. Everything else is just default. Now, as we continue to work our way back towards the front of this list at the top of the screen and we start getting into recruiting and whatnot, one of the things you're going to come across is coach abilities. Now, the first tip I can give you on coach abilities is like, don't feel like you need to spend that 5 points that you have right away. It might work out, like for instance with tactician, it kind of does. And there's probably one of these I could throw on here right now to kind of get the ball rolling on one of these tactician badges. But it doesn't always work on everything else. Like I know I have motivator in my solo dynasty that I'm playing with JMU, and those are more like, oh, if a player gets drafted, you'll have like increased XP. Well, no players are getting drafted until the end of the season. I have a lot bigger problems that I need to deal with. And so for me, I'm saving those. And I've played one game, which we lost, and I already have 15 credits now to use. And so that's just going to open things up. Even if you do want to say like open up one of these new pathways that costs 15, you can see on the bottom right. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility. So I guess the tip here is check this screen out, kind of come up with a plan, but understand that there's really, you don't have to do anything right away. It's not going to hurt you. You don't lose the points or anything. And also, I would say just keep an eye on your coordinators as well. These are, they don't have any points to spend. I don't think you can even spend your points. Yeah, so like I think they have to earn their own points too. It looks like they just give you 5 points to start off with. Your coordinators will get points as you go through and play the season. As I look at the schemes and playbooks part of Dynasty, you can see you can obviously go in and change your playbooks, but notice you cannot change your schemes. And even if I backed out and went into like edit coach, same thing here. I can edit the playbooks, but I still can't edit the scheme. So it looks like it's just pulling from either the team you select or the initial playbook you select. So like if I just change this to veer and shoot and like 4-3 multiple, let's see what it does. My guess is it's probably not going to do anything here. It's probably going to keep what was there before. No, it did. So there you go. So if you change it, it will change your schemes. So now that I put that back to normal, I will just say be careful of this. This does matter more than just the playbook you're using in game. This will affect recruiting and the type of players who are interested in your school. And as you recruit them, kind of their interest in your depth chart and things like this, these sort of things will matter. So just keep that in mind. So what about custom schedules? Now, of course, you can go in here and do whatever you want and go wild. You can even just regenerate by pressing R3. And, you know, I really like these like kind of home and home series that teams have set up, but keep in mind that a lot of the real life home and homes that have been set up are in the game. So like Michigan and Texas play in 2024. They also play in 2027. And in between that, Texas plays Ohio State in 2025 and 2026. So, well, I know it's really tempting and everyone loves to go in and like set up their custom schedule. Another tip is just to be patient with it. A lot of that stuff is already set up in the game, and you're going to see some really, really cool matchups like I just mentioned, and even some other small ones. Like there's a lot of matchups with like UTEP and UTSA that are already in the future scheduling for Texas, and of course many, many other schools with similar setups. You can look all this up just by Googling it. If you just look up like Texas future football schedule, there's websites that have all of these predetermined games. And from what the developers have told us, those games are loaded in even years into your dynasty. So my tip here is, well, yeah, custom schedules are really cool, and I know it's exciting to use them. Don't feel bad if you just let it ride, which is what I do, and just kind of go with it, because you're going to get some real life matchups that should be really fun as you play your dynasty. Now, what about recruiting? I've now switched to Eastern Michigan instead of Texas because it's just going to be a little bit easier, I think, to kind of walk through my strategies for recruiting. I wanted to take a lower school because I think a lot of you will probably be starting off at a place like that. Not all of you, but recruiting with Texas and Eastern Michigan are very different experiences. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of videos out there that will tell you how to game the recruiting system. This video is not one of them. I try to keep it realistic, try to kind of play within I guess the realities of what it would be like recruiting with Eastern Michigan. And the first thing I can say is you want to tab over to this My School section and really just know kind of what you're dealing with. And with a school like Eastern Michigan, you're not going to have a whole ton going for you as far as like maybe appeal for a high school recruit. But what we do have here is you're a new coach and a new position, so you have pretty good stability because they're probably not looking to fire you in like the first month or two or first year. And then coach prestige, it just so happens we're okay here, especially if you kind of look at the conference overall and the MAC. We have a very high impact head coach, and then our coordinators aren't bad themselves, especially the offensive coordinator, bringing in a little bit of prestige. So that's kind of what we got to work with. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that we really need to focus on players who want to be here. And what I mean by that is, as we look at the prospect list, you can see that they start you off in this recommended area. We're just going to open it up completely because when you're recruiting, guys, it's a little bit like dating. You might have a different impression of yourself than maybe what you give off, or maybe you're aiming a little bit too high, or maybe you're not being honest about certain things that your school, quote unquote, provides. The idea is, though, is you need to be, you shouldn't have to overcomplicate recruiting. You want to work with people who are interested in you. Now, of course, if we sort by interest, we're not going to see some of the best players in the country interested, of course. Now, could you sit here and kind of shoot for the stars? Sure, but it's really a waste. And again, are there ways you could probably game this? Sure. But to me, where you should be focusing on is sorting by this interest level, and then I just kind of work down from here. Now we'll do all positions, but to no one's surprise, there are no 5-star prospects interested in us, and this is fine. This means I'm not going after any of them. I'm not going to force it. Even if I have a hole, I'll be filling it elsewhere. I will sort down to 4 stars. Now, we might have a few, we don't. We have no 4 stars interested in us. That's okay either. And when I say interested, I'm talking in the top 10. We don't have any. That could change. I know there's some worries about it's kind of like NCAA 14, or maybe some of these 4 stars won't get any attention. That's up to you if you want to manipulate that. I didn't in NCAA 14. I haven't really built any house rules for it myself yet in this game because it's still too new. I'm curious to see if they patch it and things like that. Point being is we're now going down to 3 stars, and here's where we'll start to see some players showing interest. And actually I had this sort of the wrong direction, but you can see we don't have any interest regardless. So we are looking at 3 stars, and even this, all positions, we only have 3 players who are interested, and it's barely any interest. 7th, 8th, and 9th. So guys, this is tough. We have a player from Wisconsin, 2 players from Wisconsin, and a player from Michigan who are, at least right now, interested. So, will I put these guys on my list? Yeah, for sure. And I haven't gone through and I haven't looked at my depth chart and I haven't done any of that stuff yet. That's okay. You probably do want to do that before you start maybe digging into it. But even as we look at 2 stars, I mean, even if we added all of these guys, we got 2 players, 3 players who completely locked us out, and we just added these players here, we have only 10 targets. Now, it's up to you. I really don't like to dip into the 1 stars. Now, there are going to be some gems here that would be more like 2-star players, and that's pretty good. I mean, you're going to want to maybe look at some of these. So there are still quite a few 1 stars interested. So what I would probably do at this point is, because I haven't even looked at my team depth chart, I would go and do that next. I would start looking at my red shirts and kind of like game planning things out. And of course, you can do this here on the R3 screen. You can see we're going to have a lot of holes. And this is where I'd start to kind of fill in. You can see we have some targeted players. And if I have like 0s and we still have this in like a red area, well, that's going to be a problem. That's probably where I need to kind of focus my 1-star attention. So for instance, quarterbacks, after next year, we're going to have 3 on the roster. That's not terrible, but for college football, your roster is 85 people. And so having 4 or 5 quarterbacks in your team isn't the worst thing. One of them might pop in development and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the 1 stars, and then I'm going to look at quarterbacks, and we're going to see who is potentially interested. So we do have a few, and these will be some of the first players that I start to scout, because I'm hoping that one of these guys could maybe pop and be a like a 2-star, which, again, are you going to win a national championship with this guy? No, but you're Eastern Michigan in this case, and it's okay. And so now we have at least 4 targets. We'll look into those more, and you just kind of continue through that process for both offense and defense. But the idea is, what I like to think of it as, I let recruiting come to me. I don't go chasing after people. Now, if I'm Texas, maybe that's another story, or Alabama or Clemson or something like that, sure. But in this world, where a lot of you are probably starting, especially those who've kind of watched my previous video about the realistic way of picking a team, you have to kind of let the system come to you a little bit. You can't be just chasing. No one wants to be chased, right? And so you're becoming a kind of I guess like a recruiting pest, for lack of a better explanation. You want to find agreeable players who are going to be fits for you, even if that just means they're filling out a depth chart. Now, how you go about spending your recruit points, again, that's kind of up to you. You may want to, like for instance, these quarterbacks I put on here, I would probably start by scouting some of these players. And if you have the actual scouting kind of archetyped, or the recruiting archetype, you might be able to unlock these players a little bit quicker. So he's 100% recruited. He has not popped to be a... we're hoping one of these players is like a diamond. So nothing there. Nothing there. And, you know, it just might be the case that none of these players are, and none of them are. So, and of course, now you could go and look a little bit closer. If there's a certain scheme of quarterback that you're looking for, you know, this guy's... Yeah, it doesn't have great speed, doesn't have great throw power. Again, these are one-star guys. A little bit of speed. He's maybe the best one so far. Yeah, I mean, pick your poison. There aren't too great of options there. Of course, you'll want to spend a little bit of time at these like higher ranked players. So you have some 3-star guys here. And it's up to you. Do you want to use recruiting points here, or are you just going to roll the dice, say, whatever, I'll take him, because even if he's a bust, he's probably still a 2-star. And so that's up to you. You could just kind of go right into it and start, you know, offering him a scholarship. And but just kind of be thorough. Let's go ahead and scout this player. You can see it's costing us more to scout a DB than it did a quarterback, because somewhere in our coaching staff we have some sort of badge that's allowing us to scout quarterbacks quicker, thus using less hours, less points, whatever you want to call them. And so from there, of course, you can eventually you'll be able to go in and add some different actions. That's going to be in future weeks, but for now you're just kind of getting players on your board, scouting them out, and we'll just scout these last few players here. So again, we're getting a wide receiver bump, and there we go. There's our first diamond player. So really, Sermon is probably more like a 4-star receiver, and so that's a really, really nice get. And he's probably our top target at this point. So again, right away, I'm going to go in and just say, hey, let's go. You want to play at Eastern? Come on over. Local player here. Same thing. Let's give him a scout. It's going to cost us a little bit more points here than the receivers and quarterbacks. And so he is a bust, but still 2-star player. But what I would probably do is say, okay, well, let me slide this guy down more into like our 2-star player range. You know, something like this, because that's really kind of more his true rating there, and we don't have any other strong safeties. And so if we look at that's a position in need, I mean, right away you might be able to say, okay, yeah, we could offer this guy a scholarship. I mean, Eastern's got a lot of holes. It looks like we're going to be filling a lot of players here. So yeah, so again, the idea here is I'm not looking to game it. I'm letting the recruiting come to me. I'm using the tools at my disposal, knowing that you will have more tools as you get deeper into recruiting as your season progresses. All right, guys, so those are my tips before starting your Dynasty if you want to come up with a realistic Dynasty setup. We're going to be going a little bit deeper with some of these items, especially with recruiting. I'll be focusing in on a video that's going to be talking through recruiting, kind of how to do it realistically. It's not going to be a video on like how to game the system and always get 5 stars at a 1-star school or anything like that. It'll be how to get the most realistic experience so that your Dynasty feels authentic and real as you go deep into your Dynasty mode. And so that's kind of the focus with this channel. Super appreciate you checking out the video. If you wouldn't mind, give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this, and certainly leave some comments, because that kind of gives me an idea of what's helpful, where maybe the next video is going to go. And I just love just hearing what you all are doing with your Dynasty modes as well. So guys, I'm Mike Lowe. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.